round of this, the final Sunday of the home and away season. So the
And what a round of football, what a finals ahead, and we'll dissect all that very, very soon. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Footy Classified. Joining me is football's First Lady, the multiple Alf Brown-winning, Walkley Award-winning Caroline Wilson, the 300 gamer, the 4-time best and fairest,
thanks, Hutch,
and Footy's most consumed voice in Kane Corns, and the highly respected 5-time Mr. 5-time All-Australian Matthew Lloyd joins us. But we start tonight with further breaking news, and it's bad news for the Melbourne Football Club, with their superstar Christian Petrarca doubling down today, wanting out and setting the tone for an ugly few weeks ahead for the Demons. Nine Network has dominated this story. It broke it originally, and Sam McClure broke the latest phase of it today, and he joins us at the Plasma. Sam, as we welcome you in, this is not what the Melbourne Football Club wanted on a Monday after really 72 hours of drama.
Yeah, that's right, Hutchie. Good evening to you. You said off the top of the show, talked about scripting a movie. This is becoming a horror movie, and quickly, for the Demons. It was 12:45 that Christian Petrarca this afternoon had his exit review meeting with the Melbourne Football Club. We'll get to the fallout and the details of that. But first, let's hear from the club, who were, as you'll see in these grabs, as recently as this weekend, steadfast and forthright in their views that Christian Petrarca would not be going anywhere.
He's got a 5-year contract, so he'll be seeing it out. We'll catch up in the next few days and have those discussions, but, you know, where we sit today, he will be at the Melbourne Footy Club for the next 5 years. They're the facts, and that's what will happen.
No, we're not going to trade Christian. We acknowledge that it's been a really tough time for him, but our footy club's been built around some really important signings. Christian's one of them.
Yeah, so it was really interesting, Hutchie and team, on the weekend. On the Saturday night, Melbourne Football Club had their end-of-season function. His teammates clearly walked away from that function thinking that Christian Petrarca would be handing in a trade request in his exit review meeting today, and then this afternoon at his exit review meeting, the club was left in no further doubt as to what he wanted to do next year, and that is play for a rival Melbourne team in 2025. And there's some reasons that go into this. It all started, in my belief, with the club's refusal to deal with the machinations and all of the significant ramifications that came out from the Clayton Oliver situation last year. Christian Petrarca thought that the club was unprofessional in their dealings with him. It went on. The club's management of his injury, we know, and he has been pretty candid about how hurt he was by not just the injury, but by also the impact of the club not particularly dealing with it as well as he thought. He thought he didn't receive enough attention. The club's run of poor form. They haven't won a final since they won the flag in 2021. They've gone out in straight sets. Now they haven't even made the 8. So that's a significant one. And then this is a really interesting one, which I'd love to get your take on maybe to start with, Caro, is that the desire to play in front of big crowds, and it goes into the last and final point, and these two really go hand in hand together. The ability to enhance brand Petrarca, and that is Christian makes a significant amount of money away from football with his Instagram, with his cooking show, these sorts of things. He thinks that playing for an even bigger club than Melbourne, and it goes hand in hand with that fourth point of playing in front of significantly bigger crowds, particularly for the Carlton Football Club, which we'll get to in a second, could enhance his brand, Caro.
Sam, it doesn't say a huge amount to me about Christian Petrarca's leadership and love of the Melbourne Football Club, where he did sign a multi-million-dollar deal for 7 years when he won the Norm Smith medal. Now, I'm sorry, but how does it correlate the mistake they made on the King's birthday? And we all agree it was a mistake. That for my brand, I think I need to get a bigger profile at a bigger Melbourne club. You wrote a few weeks ago about player power getting out of control. Well, I'm starting to lose a bit of patience with Christian Petrarca, and I think it's taken... I don't think he really went on too much, did he, Sam, about the Oliver business and the losing finals, etc. It was more about what they did to him in his injury and Brand Petrarca and wanting to play for Collingwood or Carlton. Now, that would be a red flag to me if I was some clubs.
The last 3 points that you put up there, so the poor form of the club, the ability to play in front of big crowds, and Brand Petrarca is a selfish reason to be traded.
He should take responsibility for
so the
one of
first
the
two I
reasons
can't
they've
really
lost.
speak to, and I sort of agree with the management of Clayton Oliver. But this story ends if Simon Goodwin is true to his word, Scoop, which he said after the game on Friday night, we are not trading Christian Petrarca. I want to know...
They still have the ability to do that.
Yeah, and that ends. So the ball's in Simon Goodwin's court.
I think they wouldn't be doing their due diligence if they didn't.
Did he reinforce that to him today at 12:45 at that meeting, that we will not be trading you under any circumstance, like he said on Friday night?
The Melbourne Football Club, as we sit here tonight, do not want to trade Christian Petrarca.
But do you think they're open to one deal, and that's Carlton?
Yeah, I do. And there were two players that I think they were open to. Charlie Curnow, who has already adamantly ruled that out. And the other one is Harry Mackay. I've written for The Age today and in tomorrow's paper that Dave Trotter, who's his manager, has given me a direct quote saying that he hasn't heard from Carlton about any of this, but Harry is very happy at Carlton.
And you think Carlton are open to Harry for Christian?
Yes, I do. Yeah, but it becomes a very difficult...
This is extraordinary. This is the most explosive pre-finals trade story I can remember for a long time. And the drama around it is quite extraordinary. So, Sam, just two quick ones from me about Melbourne. As we sit here this minute, Gary Pert is locked in a board meeting. Will Gary Pert or Alan Richardson or even Simon Goodwin, will any of these men be held accountable for this debacle?
Well, that's a great question, Cara. I mean, it's a $1 million question. Clearly, there's some accountability here, not just with Christian Petrarca, but for Clayton Oliver, for Alex Neil-Bullen, for everything that's happened with Joel Smith. I mean, we're not just talking about one trade story here.
And you wrote in your piece in The Age earlier this evening that there was tension between Christian and some senior Melbourne players at the end of season function. Can you extrapolate?
Look, all I can tell you that there was an uncomfortability around elements of the function that was dominated. A lot of it, the talk was about what Christian was doing, not unlike a few years ago, Hutchie, when the Essendon Best and Fairest was dominated by whether Joe Danaher was going to request a trade for Sydney.
There was direct exchanges between he and other senior players.
At the function?
Yeah.
I can't speak to directly conversations that were had at the function. All I can tell you is that there have been some relationships between Christian and senior Melbourne players that have become strained. Now, that's not to say that they can't be fixed, but as I sit here tonight, my personal view is that I would find it difficult to see Christian going back to that football club next year. It may happen, they may turn things around, but there's some toxicity that is now involved.
Fair bit of toothpaste getting out of the tube here pretty quickly, and you'd think Melbourne are going to have to start to have a look at this and take it seriously, Lordo, because they do have on the last day the ability to say no, but they have got 6 weeks now to, I guess, start to get their head around, is the world a little bit better without him?
Yeah, 2 days ago or even a week ago, I'd have said you just fight for Christian and you just say, you know what, we're going to have another year at it where let's see if we can sort things out. But I think it's going past that point. I think that I'm happy to say I've spoken to a couple of his teammates, and they probably think now it's best for Christian to leave the club. So I think that's where it's got to the point where they're frustrated as much with Christian as Christian is with the club. So it might have got to that point of no return. The problem is Harry Mackay says no. Well, then the whole thing falls
Charlie
over.
Kernow's already said no, according to Sam McClure. Great work, by the way, by Sam McClure.
Thank you, Sam.
Can we listen to the captain,
We
Max
can in a moment.
Gawn?
Just a quick one before we get to Max. They've lost control of this narrative quickly, Melbourne, too, Cara, and that was illustrated on Friday night, the footy when Christian was agreed to go on the 7 coverage, then he didn't. Then Christian said, it wasn't me, it was Melbourne who pulled me from the interview. Then Melbourne said, no, it was Christian, didn't want to do it late. Can you take us, what happened there and how is this getting so messy so quick?
Well, while we've got Sam here for one more minute, did Mitch Cleary being part of the interview have anything to do with this?
Yeah, so it was originally going to be Abby, Richo and Luke Hodge on the interview. Mitch Cleary then tweeted about it, or now we know on X. My understanding is that Christian then got cold feet and thought, well, I don't want Mitch, a hard-hitting journo on that panel, asking me direct questions about my future, so I'm not going to do it. So there is some finger-pointing going on here at the moment.
How was it a good idea in the first place? If he wants out, Why are you running the risk on putting a superstar on the Seven broadcast?
Melbourne was super keen last week, Matthew, as you were saying.
They've got 10 years here, Caro. They're not listening to him.
Well, clearly not,
Yeah.
but they wanted him out there telling the football world he was staying, and that's what they thought he was going to do.
That's
clearly
unbelievably naive on where he sits in this.
What's his relationship like with the coach?
I'm not that comfortable about speaking to the heart of people's one-on-one relationships. I would personally say that it's not what it once was, but I think that Christian's relationship with a lot of people there has been impacted by the last 6-8 months.
It is an extraordinary story. Thanks, Sam, and well done on covering it today. And it's between you and Tom, who broke the story originally. It has been dominated across the platforms at 9. You mentioned Max Gawn. This is what he had to say on the weekend and his role in this as the captain.
My gut feel is September's still going to be a pretty busy month for us, where there's a lot of noise around our club. So I'm going to make sure we get things going and we get a really good start to our off-season. I'm going to have some good conversations over the next week or two and make sure we grow as a club. And then I'll take off and turn off my phone and get the hell away from here.
Did cross my mind. Is it time for a new captain? In the middle of all these things, do you sometimes need to change the mix-up, as Hawthorn did with Hodge and Mitchell? They've got Jack Viney there who's done it before.
I don't think you can ever turn your phone off. How can you? And maybe it was tongue in cheek, and he just
Get the hell out of here.
You cannot do that. This is full time. Every day you've got to be working. How am I going to get better? How's the team going to get better? Particularly when you're in a situation like Melbourne. So, look, I didn't love that from Max Gawn, those comments there, and I certainly didn't love their performance on Friday night.
Meantime, Jack Viney landed it beautifully, and
you called this.
Well, he took the moment in the sun, didn't he? The opportunity. He had a shadow offer, supposedly, with his dad's club North, which we accept was there. And then he had all this turmoil. So Melbourne needed a good news story, and they hang to the nearest lifeboat of a good news story. And no doubt an extra year got added here. And
3 years.
He played them on the break.
3 years.
Yeah.
So this is where clubs are so stupid.
Alistair Clarkson helped out too a bit, didn't he, by his comments?
He didn't need to do anything. Like, he had a year to go. Why do you need to get sucked in?
Because they're so drowning in the PR story, they were determined to... And it's been and gone. It doesn't matter.
So it's ridiculous.
And the Gawn contract is another reason why he doesn't get the hell out of here and turn his phone off. Just saying.
Disaster.
Yep. And then we moved to Collingwood and the situation. More on Melbourne through the course of the week, of course, and Wednesday footy class as well. Collingwood had a big season of change, and Craig McRae conceded for the first time on the weekend as they just missed the finals that they may have changed too much.
I'm a big advocate for change. I always have been. And I've been constant about wanting more and more growth and change. And I've changed all the assistant coaches year after year in their roles and responsibilities and other parts. You know, maybe this year we had too much. Maybe. Yeah, what we realised with Variety was he was doing a lot. And when he left, we had opportunities for Bolt to take some responsibility for that and Justin take some responsibility of that and then others. But we did stretch ourselves. There's no doubting that.
And they also botched the off-season, Collingwood. They did spend too much time celebrating the premiership, and Craig McRae rejected that when Lee Matthews asked him outright on Saturday, and he just said, Lee, we agree on a lot of things, but not that. But they weren't ready. They weren't ready for opening round. They missed so much early on in the season, and the change continues, Craig, because Justin Lepich will be reaffirmed as the club's new list manager over the next week. No one can be clear to me on what Brendan Bolton's future is, but he won't be footy manager. And Craig Kelly is very much keeping his head down because he's obviously struggled with running a football club as opposed to running your own business in the way he talks.
Let's move to Fremantle. The Horse, 200 to go, 3 lengths in front, and they've missed out on a slot. It's amazing the way they lost the last 4 in the end. And that's the sliding doors moment, by the way, during the year of the free kick with Collingwood and Fremantle, which turned the whole season for Collingwood. You look at that moment in reflection and they would have finished 8th. But we moved to Fremantle. And Justin Longmuir, well, it was pretty philosophical afterwards. We'll have some different views on this, I'm sure. But let's get his take on the loss after the weekend and missing the top 8.
They can't fault their effort. They've played 3 top 4 sides the last 3 weeks, and a bit of me thinks we should have won all of them. And 90% of our game is in really good order, but the 10%, whether it's discipline, game scenarios, and understanding what the game needs in that moment, we didn't get right in those games.
To be honest, it's really annoying because, we speak about it a lot and we've failed again.
And the chokers, as they were dubbed in the West Australian, was the headline, and that's the perception a little bit in the West. I want
Perception or reality? Did they choke, Kane?
I think they lost their last 4. That loss yesterday to Port Adelaide, and you can say they're a top 4 side, but you're playing for a spot in the finals. Port Adelaide, no Dixon, no Marshall, no Houston. Farrell rips his hammy halfway through the game. Vicentini's playing full forward, and you've got to win at home after losing the previous 3, and you perform like that. As much as their effort was good, I do think they choked. Finals
get tough, and you need big, tough, strong players, and that's what happens in finals. And I just thought some of their entries Jackson was so disappointing in the last month, so I was with you, Kane, on Darcy and Jackson that only one works, but he was disappointing on his own. So they've got to get Darcy fit or one or the other. This Jai Amos, I was really disappointed with him yesterday. I thought some of his efforts were poor. I know that's a poor kick, but he didn't fight hard enough or scrap hard enough. Some of their kicks were really poor in there. So without Josh Tracy, they became absolutely listless in the last month. I
think a bit hard on them, Kane. Like, they had the youngest list in the competition on the weekend. They had 3 key tools out for the last month. Tracy, they were a 2-goal better team every week per week with him. He doesn't get injured, they finish 5th, 6th or 7th, and next year they get Shea Bolton, and I reckon they're top 4 next year.
I think that's
I like where they're going.
So I think that's the conventional view, and you can certainly make that case, but you don't know when it's your time. Everyone would have thought Gold Coast would go next year. Who would have known about Hawthorn? They were in a great position to host a home final, not leave WA until grand final day. 5th youngest team on the weekend against the banged-up Port Adelaide at home for a spot in the finals. Inexcusable for me.
And Fife?
Yeah, I mean, I said this probably 10 weeks ago. It was obvious that they needed to move past Nat Fife. Look at this versus the younger, more explosive midfield. This is where Fife lets himself down now. He's no longer that powerful player. So he's matched up on Horn Francis there, wins the first one, wins the second one, sets up a goal for Port Adelaide. So these are the players that Fife has to go with. Watch this, paired off with Horn Francis here front and centre, right next to him, and you just watch the explosive speed that Fife is unable to go with, and Horn Francis makes him look silly, and then there's the ball handling errors. So if his name was Will Brodie, if his name was James Aish and not Nat Fife, there is no way he's playing in this team. The only reason he's been picked to play in this game is because of his reputation and his resume. And he's got one more year, which at the time was ridiculous to sign him for 2. So you can keep him on the list.
Backup player.
But you wouldn't play him. He's not in your best midfield. No way. They've got to move past that.
And then Port Adelaide, to be fair, they finished second. They're 8-1 since the boo-barkle when Ken was booed out of the building. And
I know what we're talking about, and I haven't respected them once. I haven't looked at them as a premiership chance at all. I'd still have them as 3rd or 4th favourite at the moment, but the toughness...
But you're opening your mind to it, Lord.
I am. I'm still worried about the forward line. Still, I thought Rioli's got him out of jail a few times, so still the key forwards. But the toughness that they're playing with can take you a long, long way. They were brutally strong and tough yesterday, which I loved.
Given how maligned he is in Adelaide, Ken Hinkley, this is his 4th top 4 finish in the last 5 years. I know that he hasn't won a premiership and he hasn't made a grand final, but this is an 18-team competition, and that is a mighty effort.
Yeah, you don't need to sell it to me, but essentially you've got to maximise those home finals to beat Geelong, who you feel like they're gettable with their midfield, and then to host another home prelim final is what's up for grabs. They just have to get it done now.
They've got Jason Horne-Francis this year. I know they had him last year, but he's taken so many...
You don't have to be as good as the last 5 years to win this flag, though. That's the other thing. Like, there's a lower threshold potentially against this winner. And they win 2, they can win it.
I was concerned about this, Hutchie, just with the Houston 5-week ban where he got done for a bump. Why would Zach Butters do this? What is to gain from doing that? If that goes 2 centimetres too high, or if Wagner hits his head on the ground, you're missing the whole of the final series. And not only did he do it once, he did it twice. Why is Zach Butters bumping there? So they haven't learnt the lesson of their team. That is a ridiculous thing to do when you can tackle and you opt to bump when you've just seen your teammate potentially miss a premiership. Couldn't believe that, so I hope he gets that out of his game.
Yeah, and it's not just about suspension, it's about tackling, getting a hold in the ball rather than the ball spilling out. On the Blues, what a life they get, a second chance that they get. Unbelievable story here. So, they've dropped, from the pressure rating dropped a little bit. It stepped up, in the last couple of weeks, which was the positive. Now they get all their players back. It's reminiscent of the Western Bulldogs, 2016. The Bulldogs, no one gave them a chance. I certainly didn't. Now they get all these players back.
They get a house money final.
They do. A week off.
I think they'd still cop it a bit, Hutchie, for...
The Conning unlikely.
They were top 2. Yeah, I think that... but what they've got to be smart, though, is they weren't playing that well with those players when they were playing. Don't come in and just bomb it along to Charlie and Harry. Play a little bit smarter, but it's a fifth. I think that you give them more than a chance than against Brisbane, than just a slight chance.
St Kilda steamed home to finish the year and got that done. But Hutchie, once again, your words from 2022 ring true.
They are in footy quicksand, the Saints.
What do you mean?
By footy quicksand, I mean the middle of the table where you just can't get out of once you're in it. And that's sort of, I reckon footy quicksand, Lordo, is sort of 8, 9, 10, 11, 7, 12 maybe. where you just get stuck in the quicksand and you cannot go backwards because you need to be brave, and you can't go forwards because you've got talent that's mid-tier talent. How do they get themselves out of this?
So Richmond was like that for 2.5 decades.
So well.
It has. So good call, Craig. So Membry may be traded. Ross will probably go. Crouch retires. They've re-signed King and re-signed a couple of other blokes. What do they do then?
Do you think
How do
that
they
he's
climb
coached
out of
too
the
well?
quicksand?
That he's coached too well?
Yeah, I mean, with
what he's got.
The problem is that he's turning a 6-win list into a 10-11 win season every year. So that nourishes the fans.
Do you think he can get to 14 wins next year, or that 11's as far as he'll get?
Not with it. So there needs to be. They don't trust him to take them backwards to go forwards, and they're not prepared to do more pain to do it. Whereas Hawthorn were like, pain, bring it on, let's go, let's take it.
There were St Kilda board members saying last week, if we win this game, we go into the middle echelon of the ladder. But if we lose, we stay in the bottom echelon.
So
they've now gone up to the point where they get a slightly tougher draw than had they lost. You can't tell me it isn't just a great win for the St Kilda Footy Club. I do not buy that for a second.
Fundamentally, they're going to have to flip players. And Josh Battle leaving, they've just got to manipulate that deal to get that.
It's a second rounder now.
But they've got to manipulate that money.
They're working hard to keep him still. They're not calling it.
Yeah, well, and I think they're absolutely 100 to 1. But anyway, I might be well and truly wrong. Plenty more to come on Footy Classified tonight. But as we go into the break, today the football world said a tragic and sad passing to Sam Landsberger. Everyone in football and in media and in journalism devastated by this much loved and respected figure, 35 years young, from a famous football family. His dad, Jake, of course, a long-time Bulldog doctor, and a very considered
colleague. The family
colleague.
spoke so beautifully today, as did some of Sam's closest friends. They were blown away by the amount of people who turned up at Temple Beth Israel in St Kilda. It was such a beautiful service, but you just left shaking your head and wanting to call all of your family just to make sure they were okay.
Footy Classified sends its thoughts, its prayers and its blessings to the Landsberger family tonight. More after this.
I don't know how many times I can sit here and say they should have moved on the coach a long time ago. It needed a fresh start. It needed a reset. It is the best coaching job that you can get right now. A new coach would go in there and do similar to what Adam Kingsley has done. Every week there's areas of deficiencies, and they're not just 1 week. They're not outliers. They've been there for so long. And that's where my criticism, it's not personal against Luke. I just think he's underperformed. He's got all these tools in the garage that he's wasting, and a new coach will come in and you watch the improvement of the Western Bulldogs when that happens.
Well, he's reinvented himself in the second half of the year. It hasn't aged terribly well for you, Kane. You've been strong on their list the other way as well, where you have been proven correct, but where do you sit on Beveridge now?
Yeah, well, credit where credit's due. I think they've been enormous the back half of the year. I thought they were terrific on the weekend against the Giants in tough conditions. But I guess my criticism is still there in the terms of wasting the start to the season where they go 3-5 with, I think, the best list in the game. And he was talking about evolving the list, and I still can't wrap my head around this.
Yeah, well, you guys, I mean, you can only assess our list based on what you see. You're looking at our whole list? Are you looking at players who have been influential in the past? Is your knowledge of the game sophisticated enough to understand that it takes more than a handful? Now we're on a period of evolution, significant evolution again.
So I just disagree with that. I don't think it was ever a poor list. I don't think there was ever a need for evolution with the list. I just see their list as, if not the best list in the game, top 2. I expect them to go deep into the finals as a result of that. And there wouldn't be a playing list that I would want to coach more than what the Western Bulldogs have right now.
I think he's a very good coach, and I think there's no doubting he's a good coach. It's just that he doesn't get teams to top 4 because I think it can be too cute at times. So I think that makes it difficult again that he's got to win 4 finals in a row when you shouldn't have to do that. I think that's the disappointment if I'm sitting here as a Western Bulldogs fan that he's not playing to go into a preliminary
and they may do it again and come from outside the top 4 and do it, but only one team has done it. You cannot tell me that Port Adelaide have a better list, that Geelong have a better list, that the Giants have a better list, and even Sydney. So we'll see how it plays out, but if they don't win it, it's as a result of that poor start to the year.
And the other argument is, I just thought Daniel was unbelievable on the weekend, and the other one was Bailey Dale was one of the best players on the ground. I think McRae's fought hard the last couple of weeks, but why is it genius coaching, or did he get it wrong that he's not playing these guys?
Well, the coach acknowledged they were the experienced players he needed in tough circumstances in Ballarat, but and he also acknowledged they'd had a really, really tough year. Yeah. And boy, oh boy, how tough have they been to come back? What
I would say is they should have been playing all year. You know, their top 22 players, their top 15 players. So it never really should get to the point where they're playing the twos.
Just a quick word on the Giants. Obviously, they were struck by injury and those late withdrawals really hurt them. But you just got to be careful. And these players have been great and they've had really impressive years. Cadman there, been really has emerged as a potential player. Darcy Jones, I've loved his year, but I just thought they were bullied, some of the young players. So how many young ones? McMullen was another one in there. I wonder how many young players they go with in the first final, because I just thought the lack of body strength and the extra time that they thought they won't have in finals stood out.
Just a hint of them being happy to play the Sydney Swans and stay at home rather than finish third and head to Adelaide, I reckon, in the way
they could have manipulated that.
Well, just the way they left a few out later, I don't think that was the end of the world for them. Not that they were the best players necessarily that were left out. Have we seen a tantalising elimination final like this? These are the two informed teams in the competition, the Bulldogs and Hawthorn, the two most watchable teams in the 8. And everyone thinks who wins this will probably run the gauntlet on their half of the draw and go as far as the grand final or prelim. What do you reckon, Lord, about this? How stiff are they to run into each other, for starters?
They are stiff, and I think that the stats are all very similar, but they play very differently. So the Bulldogs have the big forwards, the Hawks don't. I think the Bulldogs have a star-studded midfield, the Hawks don't. So you look at this, it's so different. Like, that's what they're coming up against. But I heard Impey with you, Kane, talking about hot ball. He wants to get the ball to ground. And he thinks if you can get it to ground on these forwards, well, they're going to do some damage. But if the forwards mark it, it's game over.
There's the game right there. How Hawthorn can combat that height, the dinosaur dog touchy with how tall they are in their forward line. And just a word on the teams that didn't play that well and won't feature in finals, St Kilda and North Melbourne, and the contrast between the two coaches and how they handled the end of the season.
Sometimes the margins are really small at AFL level, you know, what you've got to play for and what you haven't. And, just the spirit fell out of us.
A lot of people allude to it. There's always something to play for. Everyone's the nothing to play for. But you look around the league and you see some stuff where you go, And then we looked at the Pies and spoke about, gee, they're intense. And so their culture's important to them. And we wanted our culture, our character to be important today.
Love that from Ross Lyon versus Alistair Clarkson. And I don't want to see North Melbourne tip into players like this again. These are C+, B grade players that, yep, it's great. We sign these players, add to your depth. They're not going to take you anywhere. Have any of those players taken this club anywhere? No. So don't tip in and give 5- and 4-year deals to players who are on the fringe at other clubs, like a Dylan Stevens, Zach Fisher, Griffin Logue, Core, all of them. Don't tip into that this pre-season. If you're going to do it properly and get a big name, or go back to the draft.
Plenty more to come on Footy Classified. Up next, Caro's Arrow, plus more change afoot at Tigerland as the end of the year clean-out continues, and the Eagles still hasn't landed. The coach search goes on at the West Coast Eagles. All that ahead.
Andrew Dillon came to power at the AFL with a mandate to lift footy's profile in Sydney, to deliver better games and bigger crowds into the toughest market on the AFL landscape for both Sydney and the audience-starved Giants. He delivered early and radically with the transformational opening round, but yesterday he failed. Andrew, AFL, you have wasted and missed a golden opportunity to burst football onto the toughest market into the country and to turn the sporting eyes of the country onto the SCG. Surely that qualifying final should have been played on Friday night. It had everything. Isaac Heaney, Toby Green, bitter rivalry, great contest, and apparently Sydney wanted it there too on Friday night, but finishing top of the ladder doesn't seem to count for anything in the face of broadcasting requirements. No, the AFL and Channel 7 played it safe, preferring the Bulldogs v Hawthorn at the MCG. Bulldogs weren't happy either because the Friday night game clashes with their AFLW fixture. And what about Port Adelaide, who finished second? They go into their qualifying final against Geelong with the shortest break of any club, 11 days. Luckily, no Port player suffered concussion at Ballarat, not that the AFL asked.
It was always going to be a fixture, Arrow, from United. It's a very tough one to put together, and the broadcast pressures are real, and I'm sure that had a big factor in the Friday night game. That's still tantalising.
Wasted opportunity.
Saturday afternoon will be magnificent, Sydney and the Giants.
Man up, AFL. You've got to be tough. You've got to take the plunge. That was a great opportunity.
We're going to move to the Richmond Footy Club. A lot to talk about here. Adam Uze would be wondering what's happened because he thought he was walking into the most stable club in Richmond, and as we saw on the weekend, CEO included, it's barely a shell of its former self.
For me, I just didn't want to pass up on an opportunity to go to a stable footy club, to be able to grab your players and staff and just go and play the game and not worry about what's happening upstairs, because this footy club's run, obviously, an amazing board under Brendan's leadership. Upstairs is a really powerful part of our organisation.
I think a lot of people in football knew even then that Brendan Gale was probably Tasmania bound. His succession plan was to have Simon Matthews replace him. Simon Matthews was overlooked in favour of a younger, strongly commercial candidate in Shane Dunn last week. So there'll be more change at Richmond quite clearly, and the high performance boss, of course, is gone too today. So, and that's just the off-field, Craig. The decisions now are what Blair Hartley and Tim Livingston, without Brendan Gale looking over their shoulder, are going to do with the list.
They need a massive off-trade season trade period, Caro, and brings us down to the House of Hutch.
Huge chance for Operation Tiger Restripe. Clear them out. This is the chance. It's the Hawthorn strategy on steroids. Take it another level, and here's how to go about it for the Tigers. They've just got to embrace the demand of these players and to flip them as hard and quickly as they can. Ideally, picks into this draft, which is better than next, but take them across too. So Baker, you're going to get picked somewhere in the teens, and you take that deal. Riola, you've got to try and hunt the early pick on the Suns. They're classics at giving away, overpaying for teams for picks. You've got to go for it. Graham, you'll get the compo that the system serves you, and Bolton, there's 2 first rounds every day of the week because, again, the buyer is sitting on picks. You've got to hunt those picks. And here's the trick with Tom Lynch. Everyone seems to be... The elephant in the room is the money, $1.5 million. That's Richmond's opportunity. They've got to pay someone next year. They'll barely pay their full cap next year. Richmond's move is to say, Tom Lynch is up for grabs and we're paying. We'll pay 90%, all of it, of the $1.5 million. What we want is the high pick. No point us paying and giving us a 3rd or 4th round pick. We'll cop the bill, but we want a 1st round pick in this year's draft or next. And that's the currency's quid pro quo there. You might even do a bit better than that. And then Broad's contract, they re-signed him this year, but I still think he's got currency. He's 30. Even though he was a free agent and signed, I'd deal him out too and get that pick into next year, ideally around pick 2025 of next year. And that would give you 7 extra picks on top of this year's 121, 29, 39, 41. You could probably play a little bit of games to improve some of those when you package them into some of the academies in the state, and you might end up with, the best part of, call it 12, 14 picks inside 30 over the next 2 drafts.
And a good draft line.
And a complete reset.
This year's strong, more so than next year.
But my one caveat, I'm sorry, I've got to say this. And in the words of Jake Knoll, Daniel Rioli is not only a leader at Richmond, who's had a great year, BNF probably this year, he's an Indigenous leader at a club that embraces Indigenous talent. I think he is the one player that I would really fight to keep.
Well, he's going, and you've got to respect him properly is to respect that wish to go and not hold him against his will, and you're going to get overpaid for him. So embrace it.
Are all these clubs that stupid that they'd all be giving around? I mean, I don't mean to be disrespectful to Shea Bolton, but he's not a reliable player. Why would Freo not go to the draft?
Got the benefit of the longevity of the contract, and they can sit.
He might be the difference for him next year.
What's the latest on West Coast job, Cara?
Well, we know that Brent Montgomery's in there. We know Andrew McWalder's in there. We know that there's still several candidates who are very much in there. But I'm convinced now that Nathan Buckley, despite your back and forward on radio this morning, Kane, he's not going.
He's out.
Dean Cox is not going. None of the other contenders who I wrote about in The Age on Saturday, Daniel Gian, Syracusa, etc., Ashley Hansen, Jamie Graham, they don't want the job. And as I said earlier tonight, Craig, this is a red flag for the AFL. Are we able to have a quick listen again to what Chris Scott said to us a couple of years ago?
Would you like to see him do it?
No.
No. Why?
I wouldn't. Because it's not a very good job, to be honest.
Why do you say that?
It's a big statement.
Yeah, no, it's just hard work.
What's your concerns most?
No, it's just a stressful existence.
And this is one of the most
He's talking about his brother Brad and when to get back into coaching.
And I think everything he's seen at Essendon over the last 2 years, he'd repeat those words. But this is one of the most successful coaches of the last decade, a two-time premiership coach. And he would still today, I reckon, Chris Scott, say it's a stressful existence. So the AFL needs to look at this. Coaches aren't rewarded enough. They don't have the cachet they once had. They are screaming at the AFL to hear them, and now they should hear by what's going on at West Coast.
Waterman and Reid were the two positives for West Coast this year. I think Harley Reid will be top 5 in their best and fairest, which is a great effort. Here's the positives. Here's the positives of Harley Reid last quarter, what he can do as a forward. That's Dustin Martin-like, where you take the opposition, it's a good opposition down to the goal square, and you do this. So imagine more ball can come in. This is what he's got to not do. This is schoolboy football where you are the best and you can do whatever you want. And that's Harley Reid. So that had to be given earlier. And the player just runs into an open goal, didn't give it. So that is schoolboy sort of stuff, or where you can do what you want. And look at the captain, Oscar Allen, blowing up at him. And this was another one where the lack of predictability. So this has to be given now. And that player's running into an open goal. He doesn't give it, and watch the trouble he gets his team in. And then you can see the frustration by Darling and everyone else going, geez, I was on here. So that's where a strong coach has to demand more of him and other players.
And I don't think it's going to be Jared Schofield, who had a bit of a vague crack at Harley Reid last week.
There's a few in that pack.
Do you think having a lot of tattoos has probably belies your...
You're asking the question?
I mean, I'm not being... I don't know any other coach who's got lots of tattoos. Is it something that
I don't think it'll
West
cost him getting the job, put it that way. We've got to move on. Close checking is up next on Footy Classified as we move into the break. Good call, bad call, the closing cook, and a whole lot more.
Yeah, look, we've spoken to the club, my management and myself, and we've told them that we want to play. So hopefully, in the next sort of 5, 6, 7 days, we'll have some good news.
The decision around Tex and what's happening there will be decided once the season's done. So we'll start sitting down. We've been sitting down with Tex right the way through, but we'll finalise some of that over the coming months.
Does that sort of depend on other plans that come to fruition or opportunities that might come up?
Yeah, well, it does. I mean, there's a lot. We're extremely busy at the moment. We feel we have to be. It's an area that we're going to be aggressive with acquisition.
So Texas confident he's got an extension in the pocket. The club's still a little bit non-committal in what the bad end of the season for Adelaide, and a rough week, it must be said, for Matthew Nicks. Does he have anything to worry about his job in the off-season, Cara?
I think he wouldn't be feeling 100% safe. Now, I'm not suggesting the club are going to move on Matthew Nicks, but the Richelli debacle, the mixed messages coming out over that, Tex putting pressure on the club, Matthew Nicks, pushing back. I don't think Matthew Nicks has had a great week, and I think the club is obviously questioning whether they were right to extend his contract.
OK, close checking with Kane Corns.
Thanks, Hutchie. And maybe the Dogs are just holding just a little bit back when they're going to unleash it on the finals. But I love Sam Darcy, clearly, and I love this when he kicked this goal from the ruck. I think it is such a weapon to have a ruckman who can do the forward ruck work. So he kicks that goal 13-25 from a forward throw-in stoppage. But you get a next one 4 minutes later, and you've got him at full forward, and Tim English comes down to do the ruck. Darcy should do all forward 50 ruck. It's such a weapon. And English then goes and sits out there as a spare behind the ball, and you get that coverage defensively from the big ruckman. In the end, the Giants win this and clear the footy to exactly where Tim English should be standing. Love Port's pressure. Lordo, you've already mentioned this, but players playing for their life. Jed McEntee, go and watch his tape if you want to be a pressure forward. Not big numbers by any means. Darcy Byrne-Jones nearly played 200 games. Just outstanding. This is the reason they won this game of football. They will beat Geelong if they can bring this heat and put Geelong under this sort of heat. McEntee will go to Tom Stewart. They were all over Fremantle yesterday. It's the reason they've gone 8 and 9. Why bump? Why are we bumping? What's with that cost him a goal? That's Stephen Cornelio. How much footy has he played? And he comes in with the bump. A pretty ordinary bump, mind you, when he could tackle. That's weak, and they go down and kick a goal. Ridiculous. I just don't understand it. And then we're watching this. Connor Rosie, the skipper of Port Adelaide, I thought he was poor. Now, he's got to nail those tackles. You are the captain of your club. You got a big qualifying final. Just that's not going to cut it. Now, some talk around an injured back, Connor Rosie, but that's no excuse. He got to be stronger than that against Geelong next week. He's got to set the example for his team. And then this one, Cripps' third quarter. We all thought during the week, is he going to do it again? Lord, Lordo, you would have spoken about it. Stocker goes to him. I've never seen a star midfielder burn off a tagger like he did in the third quarter, to the point where they had no answer. Stocker gets subbed and they go, still, you go and try and plant him. So 12 touches, 7 kicks, 5 clearances, 3 tackles. He's a marvellous player.
Well done. Close checking is in finals form, that's for sure. Good call, bad call. And the closing cook ahead on Footy Classified. Good call, bad call time. Caroline Wilson with the new ball. And Caro, teams won't be putting up their hand to travel north for opening round in 2025. Good call, bad call.
Good call by you. Fixture call by you, Craig. Despite the bye that everyone bleated about, look at what happened to the teams who went north. Melbourne missed finals. Carlton barely snuck in.
Sydney finished on top.
Richmond wouldn't spoon. Collingwood missed finals after winning the
Giants.
Archie to you. Razor Ray has become a universally admired figure in the game. Good call, bad call.
Almost call. Everyone but one call. We love to a person, bar one, Razor Ray. Farewell, music, guard of honour, you name it. Oh, I've finally got rid of them. Oh, no, there's one more pickle who wants to give me a hard time on the way off. Can you believe it?
Kane, media figures should have known better than to give Jack Ginnivan a chance to make them look silly. Good call, bad call.
Yeah, it's a good call, Lord. I ought to have been there myself. Call. Let's have a look at these two. Just having a little crack at our good friend Damien Barrett, where they are plugging their merch, and up the top, it's a form of tanking, which Damo criticised them for about 2 years ago.
Oh dear, that's right. So Matthew Lloyd, Jake Stringer has earned a new deal. Good call, bad call.
That's a good call by you, Caro. Not many players can kick 42 goals in a season. That's what he has just done. So
1 year or two?
I'd give him 2.
Generous. Koshy has spent too much time in Sydney, Caro.
No, I think
Kane, even better. Good call, bad call.
Archie, let's have a listen to the Port Adelaide chairman on Radio 5AA.
A whole range of things means we're going to have to really look at something before the next showdown. Both clubs to take a responsibility for just taking the sting out of the showdown, the nastiness out of the showdown.
It's a good call. Just 10% too nasty, I think the last one got. Just dial it back a fraction.
Caro, Dennis Committee was missed at Optus Stadium yesterday. Good call, bad call.
Good call, Matthew. Centimetre perfect call. Have a look at this, Luke. Well, there's Mitch Georgiades. And who is sneaking up on him like a librarian but Luke Ryan. And Dennis would have called a perfectly good call.
Stalking him here. Look at this. Look at this angle here. He comes from bang. Mitch has got no idea what he's going on.
Like a librarian.
Lordo, to you, the first rule of commercial media is to honour thy sponsor. Good call, bad call.
Good call by you, Kano. On the Sunday Footy Show, you and I loved the Peter Daos cologne. It was a magnificent smell, and Caro on Throw W disrespected it.
Oh. Did I read on our running sheet that we're giving away a Peter Daos perfume?
It's not funny. This is serious, Caro. Stop laughing.
Is it like aftershave?
Yeah, it's an eau de cologne it is. I don't know what you're laughing for. It's not a joke. This is a serious stuff, Caro. It's $125 a bottle. It's not cheap.
He is striking while the iron's hot, Peter Daos.
He is. It smells a goal too, that cologne. Yeah, it really does.
You should read the description of it. Craig Hutchison, bring us home. It's time to take a whole-of-club attitude to high performance. Good call,
Look, this is a good call and a really concerning call from a serious injury on the weekend with one club that was underprepared. So you've got to get your mascot and your runners and your stuntmen match fit. Look at this. Down he goes.
Oh, that's a bad one.
Ballarat. That's a tendon.
You expected to run down that pickle out the front, but no. He's done the hammy. He's not up to it. And you can't have the bloke off the street running away winning while your high performer, your stunt guy, I'm sorry, you got to get him in match shape, Kane. You do.
I'm with you, Archie.
There should be a mascot academy camp or something where you can send them off on scale and they come back different mascots. Good closing cooks on the other side of this. Footy Classified.
It's a cook tonight for Hutchie and the way he puts his rosters together at SEN. Why would you put Andy Marr on round 24 games with Carlton when it's finals or bust? And here's round 22. Let's take a look back at round 22. Andy Marr calling against the Pies.
McCreary lost the footy. Carlton lost the game. It's unimaginably cruel. The worst of fates for Carlton. The greatest of deeds for Collingwood.
So this is not Blues radio. That's a genuine call. And it got even worse after Higgins kicked that goal on yesterday. Watch Andy Marr. He can say one word and it's all over for him.
Higgins around the body, hooking, Hooking! Goal! He's kicked the goal!
How cruel are you, Hutchie?
He had a Port Adelaide jump on today.
Yeah, should have seen you in the Freo game. We'll see you Wednesday night, of course, Footy Class, and us next Monday. Good night.